Hey guys, tonight we're going to dim the lights, maybe snuggle into your comfiest spot, and imagine ourselves in a time that was all about secrets and shadows. We're going to step into the quiet, often terrifying world of a Cold War double agent. You might think, oh, spies, cool, but trust me, after tonight you probably won't want to actually try to be one and definitely wouldn't survive it. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you in the comments below. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You find yourself in the middle of the 20th century, a time when the world was split in two. On one side, the West, led by countries like the United States. On the other, the East, led by the Soviet Union. They were like two giant watchful beasts, staring at each other, never quite fighting directly but always trying to get an edge. This period, from roughly the late 1940s to the early 1990s, was known as the Cold War. It was a time of intense suspicion, nuclear threats, and a very quiet, very dangerous game of spies. And you, well, you're about to imagine yourself right in the middle of it, considering a path that very few dared to walk, becoming a double agent. The idea first tickles your mind on a gloomy afternoon. Maybe you're sitting in a cramped, smoky office, or perhaps you're just a student, barely scraping by. The world feels heavy with the news of new missiles, distant wars, and the constant hum of propaganda. You hear whispers, see things, maybe you have access to something, or know someone who knows someone. The initial thought isn't about grand heroism, it's more like a little quiet itch. Perhaps it's because you feel like your own country isn't quite right, or maybe you see something in the other side that appeals to your beliefs. Some people during this time genuinely believed one system was better than the other, and they were willing to risk everything for that belief. This was a core motivation for many early double agents, especially those who were ideologically driven. The famous Cambridge Five, for example, were British university students who genuinely believed in communism and began spying for the Soviet Union even before the Cold War officially started. It wasn't about money for them, it was about deeply held beliefs. But it's not always about grand ideas, is it? Sometimes the reason is much simpler, much more human. Maybe you're struggling with money. Your wallet feels lighter than a feather. Your bills stack up like a small, sad tower, and the promise of a steady, substantial income, even if it comes from shadowy corners, starts to look incredibly tempting. You imagine a life where you don't have to worry about rent, where you can afford a warm coat, or even just a decent meal without counting every penny. The agents who first approach you, or the thoughts that first appear in your head, paint a picture of a comfortable life, a life free from financial worry. They might whisper about a better future, about being appreciated for your cleverness, your sharp mind. You might even feel a little thrill, a sense of adventure blooming in your chest. The thought of living a double life, of outsmarting the system, has a certain pull, doesn't it? It's a bit like imagining you're in a thrilling book, but you're the main character. You picture yourself slipping through crowded streets, exchanging secret glances, holding whispered conversations in dimly lit cafes. It sounds exciting, doesn't it? A bit like a fantasy. Then there's the less glamorous, more chilling reason, coercion. Perhaps you made a mistake, a small error in judgment, something that could ruin your life, your career, or even your family. And someone, somewhere, found out. They come to you, not with promises of money or glory, but with quiet threats. They don't yell, they just speak softly, outlining exactly how much they know and what will happen if you don't cooperate. You feel a cold knot form in your stomach. Your options suddenly feel very limited, like walking into a maze with only one exit, and that exit leads straight into the dark. It's a terrifying thought, isn't it? To be trapped, to have your hand forced into a game where the stakes are your very existence. This method, known as blackmail, was a very common and effective tool used by intelligence agencies on both sides to recruit agents. It's hard to imagine the fear that would drive someone to betray their country, their friends, everything they knew, just to keep a secret hidden. Historians still ponder whether the primary motivation for most Cold War double agents was ideology, money, or coercion. It's not a simple answer, as each case was unique. Some, like George Blake, genuinely believed in the cause they spied for, even while serving another country. But for you, sitting there, imagining this choice, the lines are blurring. You might start to convince yourself that it's for the greater good, even if a part of you just wants to escape your current troubles. You imagine the thrill of the unknown, the quiet satisfaction of holding a secret bigger than anyone around you could possibly imagine. A strange tidbit from this era is how some people stumbled into espionage almost accidentally. They might have been approached by someone friendly, started sharing small bits of information, and before they knew it, they were in too deep, unable to back out. It wasn't always a dramatic recruitment. Sometimes it was a slow, subtle pull into the abyss. You probably tell yourself it won't be that bad. Just a little bit of information, a few meetings, a bit of extra cash, and then you'll be out. But once you step into this shadow world, stepping back out is never truly an option. The thought of it makes your heart beat a little faster, a tiny flutter of excitement mixed with a shiver of dread. You're on the edge, looking down into the deep, dark well of secrets, and you're about to take the plunge. That first step into the shadow world is strangely quiet, not a bang, but a whisper. You've made your decision, or perhaps it was made for you, and right away you feel it, the watching eyes. It's a subtle shift, a creeping awareness that someone somewhere is now paying very close attention to you. It's not necessarily a dramatic figure in a trench coat standing across the street, though that image certainly makes your stomach clench. No, it's more insidious than that. It's the way a certain person you know seems to ask too many casual questions about your work, or your friends, or your routine. It's the feeling that your phone line might have a tiny, almost imperceptible hum on it, or that the mail you receive looks like it might have been opened and resealed ever so carefully. This constant feeling of being observed, even when there's no visible proof, quickly becomes a heavy blanket around you. Your initial contacts are often very low-key, almost accidental. You might meet someone at a seemingly innocent social gathering, a work conference, or even just at a local park. They're friendly, perhaps a bit too friendly. They seem genuinely interested in you, your life, your opinions. They might share a joke, a sympathetic ear, or even a small favour. It's all designed to build trust, to make you feel comfortable. You might even find yourself enjoying their company, thinking you've made a new friend. But beneath the surface, a careful game is being played. They are assessing you, testing your reactions, looking for weaknesses, for opportunities. They might drop a casual comment about a sensitive topic, watching your eyes, your posture, your almost invisible reactions. This friendship is really an elaborate trap, slowly closing around you. One mainstream historical fact from this period is the sheer scale of surveillance conducted by both sides. The Stasi, East Germany's secret police, were infamous for their pervasive surveillance of their own citizens, often recruiting friends and family members to spy on each other. You start to feel that chilling reality in your bones. You walk down the street, and every casual glance from a stranger seems to linger a fraction too long. You hear a door close in your apartment building, and you wonder if it was just a neighbour or someone else. Your own home, which used to feel like a safe haven, now seems to echo with silent questions. You might even start looking at your own reflection, wondering if the fear is showing on your face, or if you look as calm and normal as you need to be. The quiet tests begin. Maybe you're asked to deliver a seemingly innocent package, or make a phone call to a number you don't recognise. These are dry runs, small actions to see if you follow instructions, if you get nervous, if you can keep your composure. You tell yourself it's nothing, just a favour, but your heart thumps a little faster each time. A quirky, lesser-known tidbit from spy history is that some early recruitment efforts involved rather bizarre methods to test a recruit's honesty or loyalty, like asking them to commit a small, seemingly meaningless act of deception against a stranger, just to see if they would do it and how well they handled the guilt or stress afterward. You might find yourself doing something small, something you normally wouldn't, and then feeling a strange mix of relief and disgust. You realise that your life is no longer entirely your own. Your routines, once comforting, now feel like a blueprint that others are studying. You find yourself changing your walking route to work just in case. You start observing others more carefully, trying to spot the watcher before they spot you. It's exhausting. Your mind is constantly racing, always looking for subtle signs, always on alert. You remember that friendly new acquaintance. You start replaying every conversation, every look, searching for hidden meanings. You might even start to doubt your closest friends, wondering if they too are part of this silent, unseen network. It's a horrible feeling, this erosion of trust. This early period is also about assessing your access. Do you really have the information they want? Can you get it without drawing too much attention? You might work in a government office, a research lab, or have a seemingly ordinary job that places you near sensitive information. They're not looking for state secrets right away. They're looking for your potential. They might ask you to casually bring home a specific newspaper from work, or to notice how many guards are on duty at a certain building, or to remember the layout of a particular office. These small requests feel harmless, but they are building blocks for something much bigger and far more dangerous. It's a point of contention among experts if the early stages of recruitment were more about psychological manipulation or direct coercion. For you, it feels like a slow, steady squeeze. You're not being forced, not directly, but the path you've chosen or been pushed onto feels narrower with each passing day. You start to see the world differently. Every shadow seems deeper, every noise louder, every silence more unsettling. The Cold War wasn't just a global conflict, it was a personal one, fought in the minds and hearts of individuals like you. And you're just beginning to understand the true price of admission to this very exclusive, very lonely club. The initial thrill has faded, replaced by a dull, persistent ache of anxiety. You're in, and there's no easy way out. The eyes are still watching, and you know they always will be. You've been recruited, or rather, you've agreed to play the game. Now comes the part that Hollywood movies often gloss over, the training. If you imagine sleek, high-tech facilities, laser grids, and instructors doing backflips, you're in for a rude awakening. Spy School, for someone like you, a budding double agent, was less like a thrilling action movie and more like a series of awkward, sometimes boring lessons conducted in safe houses, quiet parks, or even dimly lit hotel rooms. It's a very personal, very uncomfortable learning experience. Your instructors aren't charismatic heroes. They're often quiet, watchful people with tired eyes. They speak in low tones, explaining things in great detail, making sure you understand. You learn tradecraft, the basic skills of a spy. This isn't about hand-to-hand combat. It's about blending in, observing, and remembering. You're taught how to spot a tail, how to lose one in a crowd without looking like you're trying. You walk busy streets, turning corners, checking reflections, trying to catch someone following you. It feels silly at first, like a children's game of hide and seek, but the stakes are very, very real. You feel clumsy, noticeable, like a giant target, even when you're just trying to walk normally. One mainstream historical fact is that agents were often trained in observation and memory. They might be shown a picture of a crowded street scene for only a few seconds, then asked to recall every detail: the colour of a car, the number of people, what someone was wearing. You find yourself practicing this constantly. You're walking through a train station, and you force yourself to notice the small scar on a man's hand, the specific way a woman holds her handbag, the types of shoes everyone is wearing. It's exhausting, trying to absorb so much detail, and you quickly realise how much you normally miss in your everyday life. Your brain feels like it's constantly on overdrive, trying to remember every tiny thing. Then there's the lesson on dead drops. This is how agents exchange information without ever meeting. Imagine leaving a small package, a rolled-up document, or a tiny camera in a secret location, perhaps under a loose brick in a park wall, or taped beneath a public bench, or even inside a hollowed-out book placed in a public library. You're taught how to prepare a dead drop, how to make sure no one sees you, and how to make it look completely natural. You practice placing a fake package, then walking away, only to return later to retrieve it, just to see if you can do it without looking suspicious. You feel like you're acting in a play, constantly aware of your movements, trying to look bored or distracted, when inside your heart is pounding like a drum. A quirky, lesser-known tidbit is that some dead drops were incredibly elaborate and even involved animals. In one case, the CIA reportedly trained pigeons to carry tiny cameras and film, and their dead drop was a custom-made birdhouse in a public park. Imagine trying to explain that if you were caught. You also learn about brush passes, brief, almost imperceptible exchanges of items between two people in a public place. You walk towards your contact, maybe brushing shoulders, and in that split second, a small object, perhaps a microdot, changes hands. It requires incredible timing and coordination. You practice this with your instructor, walking past each other in a crowded market, trying to make the exchange without anyone noticing. It feels awkward, like a bad dance. You keep thinking, did I do that right? Was my hand too obvious? Did they see? This level of constant self-awareness is draining. There's also the art of cover stories. You need a believable reason to be where you are, doing what you're doing. You're given a new identity, a new set of facts about your life that you must memorize perfectly. Not just the big details, but the small ones. Where you went to school, your favorite food, the names of your fictional family members. You have to live this new identity in your head, practice it, until it feels natural. This creates a strange double vision of your own life, where your real self and your spy self constantly bump into each other. is a bit like trying to juggle two very different versions of you at the same time. It's a point of contention among experts if these often rudimentary training methods were truly effective, especially given the high rate of captured spies. For you, the training feels incredibly isolating. You don't have classmates to share a laugh with, no one to commiserate with about the weirdness of it all. It's just you and your quiet, watchful instructor, repeating drills, feeling your stomach clench with anxiety with every new lesson. You learn how to use a basic camera to photograph documents, how to write invisible ink messages, or how to leave coded chalk marks on a lamppost to signal that a message has been left. These skills, while far from glamorous, are your only tools to survive. You leave each training session feeling more alone, more exposed, but perhaps also a tiny bit more competent in this strange, dangerous new world you've entered. The world of secrets is slowly becoming your new reality. After the awkward dance lessons of spy school, you quickly move into the truly baffling world of secret codes and signals. This isn't about high-speed data transfers or encrypted emails. This is the Cold War, remember? So, your methods of talking without actually speaking are often clunky, sometimes brilliant, and always incredibly stressful. Learning to talk without talking is like learning a whole new language, but this language is designed to be invisible, confusing, and if you make even one small mistake, it could cost you everything. You're given your first one-time pad. Imagine a small, innocent-looking notepad full of random letters or numbers. This pad is your lifeline. To send a message, you combine your secret message with the random sequence of letters from the pad, usually by adding or subtracting numbers based on the alphabet. Then, once you've used a line of the pad, you tear it off and destroy it. This makes the code almost impossible to break because each key is used only once. The problem: you need a matching pad on the other side, and if you make even one tiny mistake, a wrong number, a skipped line, a misread letter, your entire message becomes gibberish. You sit for hours, painstakingly encoding and decoding, your brow furrowed, your heart thumping with every tiny mark you make. Your fingers might cramp from the careful writing, and your eyes burn from staring at the tiny letters. The stress of this process is immense. You can't afford to make a single error. One wrong letter, and you could be sending your handlers to the wrong location. Or worse, revealing critical information in a garbled mess that looks suspicious. Imagine writing a message, then having to go back and check every single letter, every single number, over and over again, knowing your life depends on it. You can feel the weight of each character, each symbol. It's not a quick text message, it's a slow, agonizing process. A mainstream historical fact is the widespread use of one-time pads because of their theoretical invulnerability. They were considered the gold standard for secure communication, as long as they were truly used only once and kept secret. But the sheer manual nature of them meant human error was always a major risk. For you, it means endless hours hunched over a desk, a small penlight illuminating your secret work, while the rest of the world sleeps, unaware of the silent battles being fought in quiet rooms. Then there are microdots. These are absolutely fascinating and equally terrifying. Imagine an entire page of text shrunk down to the size of a tiny dot, like the period at the end of this sentence. This tiny dot can then be hidden in plain sight, on a letter, on a stamp sewn into clothing, or even smeared onto a piece of cutlery in a restaurant. To read it, you need a special microscope. You might be given a tiny film canister, no bigger than your thumbnail, containing dozens of these minuscule messages. The challenge isn't just hiding them, but retrieving them without crushing them or losing them. You practice carefully lifting them with tweezers, placing them on a slide and trying to focus a tiny, cheap microscope until the impossibly small words start to appear. It's a fiddly, frustrating process, often done in poor light, with the constant fear of being interrupted. A quirky, lesser-known tidbit is that some microdots were so small that they could even be hidden inside a specific, unpopped kernel of corn in a bag of popcorn, or baked into a piece of bread. Imagine the pressure of eating a piece of bread, knowing a vital message is inside and hoping you don't accidentally swallow it whole. Or perhaps you're told to buy a certain brand of cereal, and the prize inside is a microdot, not a toy. The bizarre ingenuity of these methods is almost comical, until you remember the deadly serious purpose behind them. Beyond the codes, there are signals. These are usually non-verbal cues to let your handlers know if you have information, or if it's safe to meet. This could be anything from placing a specific item in your window, a potted plant, a certain colour of curtain, to leaving a chalk mark on a lamppost, or a specific piece of litter in a prearranged spot. You might adjust your clothes in a particular way in a public place, or hold a specific newspaper. These are tiny acts, but each one carries enormous weight. You walk by the designated spot, perhaps a dusty statue in a park, and quickly, almost without breaking stride, you leave your signal. Your heart pounds. Did anyone see? Was it obvious? Was the signal clear enough? You try to appear casual, like someone just enjoying a stroll, but inside you're a coiled spring of nerves. It's a point of contention among experts if the complexity of these communication methods actually made agents safer or simply increased the risk of human error and detection. For you, the fear of making a mistake is a constant companion. You worry about misreading a signal, about leaving a code in the wrong place, about accidentally revealing yourself. You dream of numbers and letters, of tiny dots floating in the air. The silence of these communications is deafening, filled only with your own rising anxiety. You're always practicing, always checking, always on edge. This isn't the thrilling exchange of secrets you imagined. It's a painstaking, nerve-wracking existence, where every whispered number and every tiny dot holds the power of life or death. And you're getting ready for your first real task, where all these lessons will be put to the ultimate test. You've spent what feels like an eternity practicing. You've memorized the codes, perfected your walk, learned to spot the watchers, and practiced your awkward brush passes. But all of that was just a dress rehearsal. Now, the moment arrives for your first real dangerous task. This isn't a drill. This isn't practice. This is it. You feel a cold knot of dread form in your stomach, tightening with every breath. The world outside your window suddenly looks sharper, colours more vivid, sounds more intense. Every creak of the floorboards, every distant siren seems to echo your own racing heartbeat. Your task is deceptively simple on paper. Retrieve a document from a specific location, photograph it, and then replace it without anyone knowing it was ever gone. The location is an office building, late at night. You've cased the place, walked by it a dozen times, looked at the windows, counted the steps. But knowing it in your head is vastly different from being there, in the dark with the silence pressing in around you. Your hands are clammy, and a bead of sweat trickles down your back, even though the night air is cool. You approach the building, trying to look as casual as someone out for a very late night stroll. Your cover story, carefully rehearsed, feels flimsy now, like a thin sheet of paper against a strong wind. You slip inside, perhaps through a back entrance that was supposed to be unlocked or using a key you were given. The moment the door clicks shut behind you, this sound seems deafening, echoing through the empty hallways. Your heart feels like a trapped bird, beating against your ribs, trying desperately to escape. One mainstream historical fact is that many intelligence operations relied on agents physically breaking into secure locations to plant bugs, steal documents, or photograph sensitive materials. This was a common high-risk activity. You feel the weight of this history in your very bones as you move through the silent building. Each step you take is deliberate, soft. You listen intently, straining to hear any sound that isn't your own ragged breathing. Every shadow seems to lengthen, to twist into menacing shapes. The air smells stale, like old paper and dust. You can almost taste the fear in your mouth, metallic and sharp. You reach the target office. The door is locked, of course. You pull out the tools you were given, a set of picks, small and cold in your trembling fingers. Your instructor made it look so easy, a few clicks, and the lock would yield. But here, in the dark, under immense pressure, your hands feel clumsy, useless. Your breath hitches with each failed attempt. You imagine guards, cameras, alarms. Every minute stretches into an eternity. Finally, with a soft, almost imperceptible click, the lock gives way. A wave of relief washes over you, quickly replaced by a fresh surge of terror. You're in. Inside, you move quickly, but carefully. You know exactly where the document is supposed to be, in a specific drawer, in a particular filing cabinet. The beam of your small pen light dances over the surfaces, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. You open the drawer, your fingers fumbling slightly, and there it is. The paper feels ordinary, harmless, yet it holds immense power. You set up your miniature camera, a device that feels ancient and clunky in your hands. The click of the shutter is so quiet, barely a whisper, yet in the stillness of the office, it sounds like a gunshot. You take each photograph, making sure the lighting is right, the pages are clear, praying you don't miss anything. A quirky, lesser-known tidbit from this period is how ingenious and sometimes ridiculous some of the hiding spots for cameras or listening devices could be. Some agents use cameras hidden inside cigarette packs, or even inside seemingly ordinary belt buckles. You might find yourself fumbling with a camera that looks like a normal lighter, trying to take pictures of top-secret documents without shaking. The whole process feels surreal, like a bizarre dream you can't wake from. Suddenly you hear something, a creak, a distant cough. Your blood runs cold. You freeze, holding your breath, straining your ears. Was it just the building settling, or was it footsteps? Your heart hammers against your ribs, so loudly you think it must be audible to anyone within a mile radius. You consider your options: hide, run, or try to finish the task. The fear is paralyzing, a cold, heavy blanket that smothers your thoughts. This is the moment your training kicks in, or collapses under the strain. You quickly finish your task, replace the document, and silently close the drawer, trying to leave no trace. It's a point of contention among experts if the intense psychological pressure of these solo operations contributed more to agent burnout and eventual capture than actual technical failures. For you, the sheer terror of that moment, the sudden noise, the certainty of being caught, is etched into your memory. You slip out of the office, retrace your steps, your senses on high alert. The night air, when you finally step back outside, feels crisp and unbelievably fresh. You want to run, to scream, to just keep moving until you're miles away from this building, this city, this life. But you can't. You have to walk away casually, like nothing happened, like you were just out for a walk. You've done it. You've completed your first mission. But the taste of fear still lingers, a bitter reminder of the world you've entered. The easy excitement of adventure is gone, replaced by a deep, bone-weary exhaustion. You've completed your first real, terrifying mission. The fear is still a cold residue in your mouth, but there's also a strange, fleeting sense of accomplishment, like a tiny spark in the vast darkness. You've proven yourself for now, and that means it's time to meet the person who will be your direct link to the shadowy world you've joined, your handler. This isn't a friendly chat over coffee with a new colleague. This is a very specific, highly choreographed meeting, often in a neutral public place, designed to minimize risk for your handler and maximize your feeling of being completely under their control. You arrive at the prearranged location, perhaps a busy train station during rush hour, a dimly lit corner of a museum, or a quiet bench in a park where no one pays much attention to individuals. You're looking for a specific signal, a small, almost invisible sign. Maybe someone is reading a newspaper upside down, or wearing a hat of a very particular colour, or holding a single wilted flower. You spot them. Your heart gives a little lurch. This is the person who holds your fate in their hands. Your handler is rarely what you expect from movies. They're not usually suave, dashing figures. Instead, they might be utterly unremarkable, blending seamlessly into the crowd. They might be older, with tired eyes that have seen too much. Or they might be younger, with a nervous energy that belies their quiet demeanour. They almost never introduce themselves with a flourish. There's no firm handshake, no warm smile. The interaction is brief, precise, and utterly devoid of personal connection. You exchange a few pre-arranged code words, a seemingly random question, a pre-rehearsed answer, just to confirm identity. It's like a secret handshake that only two people in the world understand. This meeting is where you receive your instructions for future tasks. The handler speaks in low, calm tones, giving you details, what information they need, how to obtain it, where and when to make your next dead drop, what new code sequences to use. You listen, absorbing every word, knowing that missing a single detail could be catastrophic. You can't ask too many questions. You can't show too much emotion. You are a tool, a resource, and your purpose is to execute orders, not to understand the grand strategy. It's like being a very specific kind of delivery person, but the packages are secrets, and the penalty for a wrong delivery is prison or worse. One mainstream historical fact about handlers is their strict adherence to operational security, known as OPSEC. They rarely gave agents their real names or details about their own lives. They often used multiple agents, never letting one agent know about another, to create a disconnected network that was harder to unravel if one part was compromised. For you, this means your handler is a complete mystery. You know nothing about them, where they live, what their real job is, if they have a family. They are a voice, a presence, a set of instructions, and nothing more. This creates a profound sense of isolation. You are connected to this shadow world, but you're also utterly alone within it. The relationship with your handler is inherently unequal. They hold all the power. They know your vulnerabilities, your reasons for being there, and they control the flow of information and money, if that's your motivation. You're dependent on them for your tasks, your payments, and ultimately your perceived safety. There's no room for friendship, no shared confidences. Any attempt to get too personal would likely be met with a cold stare or a subtle warning. It's a professional relationship, but one where your career could end in a prison cell or a shallow grave if you displease your boss. A quirky, lesser-known tidbit is that some handlers used extremely odd recognition signals that seem designed to test an agent's nerves or obedience. Imagine being told your handler will be the person in the park feeding pigeons, but they'll be doing it while wearing mismatched shoes and humming a specific obscure folk song. You might feel a ridiculous urge to laugh, but you force it down, your face a mask of seriousness. Another handler might signal with a specific number of puffs from a pipe, or by adjusting a tie pin in a particular sequence. These strange little rituals, while adding to the stress, were also oddly memorable. It's a point of contention among experts if the psychological impact of such a controlled, one-sided relationship with a handler contributed more to an agent's eventual defection or breakdown than the physical dangers of the job. For you, the lack of genuine human connection is profoundly unsettling. You can't trust them, not fully, because their loyalty is to their mission, not to you. And they certainly don't trust you, not fully, because you are, after all, a betrayer of one kind or another. You're a disposable asset in their eyes, and you feel it. After the brief exchange, your handler melts back into the crowd as silently as they appeared. You're left standing there, with a new set of instructions spinning in your head, and a renewed sense of the immense pressure you're under. You walk away, trying to look normal, but inside you feel a deep chill. You've just met your lifeline, and they've reminded you just how thin that line is, and how easily it could snap. You are a puppet, and your strings lead straight into the shadows, and you are about to feel the pull of those strings in every aspect of your life. You've started receiving orders, taking risks, and meeting your mysterious handler. Now, the real challenge begins, juggling your two vastly different lives. On one hand, you have your public self, your job, your friends, your family, your daily routines, all the mundane, comforting things that make up a normal existence. On the other, you have your secret self, the double agent, living in shadows, making dead drops, encoding messages and meeting strangers in hidden corners. Keeping these two worlds completely separate and believable is not just exhausting. It's a constant, mind-bending performance that never ends. Imagine waking up in the morning. Your first thought isn't about breakfast or your commute. It's about what part of your spy life you need to focus on today. Did you remember to destroy the last one-time pad? Do you have to make a signal tonight? Is there a new task waiting for you? This internal monologue of secrets immediately clashes with the need to appear perfectly normal to your partner, your children, or your roommates. You can't let anything slip. Not a nervous glance, not a too long silence, not a sudden change in routine. It's like living with an invisible, highly critical audience, constantly watching your every move. At your regular job, you have to appear diligent, perhaps even a bit boring. You can't show too much interest in sensitive files, but you also can't show too little. You have to maintain your professional reputation while simultaneously looking for opportunities to gather information. You might find yourself taking notes that seem innocent to others, but are actually coded observations for your handlers. Or you might accidentally leave a door ajar, hoping to get a glimpse of a document or a layout. The stress of this duality is immense. Every conversation, every interaction becomes a potential minefield. You feel like you're playing a constant game of charades, where the clues are subtle and the stakes are life or death. One mainstream historical fact is that many successful Cold War agents maintained utterly unremarkable day jobs as their cover. They were clerks, diplomats, journalists, scientists, or even librarians. Professions that offered legitimate access to information or allowed for plausible reasons to travel or meet people. For you, this means your normal life is your best disguise. You have to be so normal, so utterly unmemorable, that no one ever suspects that you're living a second, infinitely more dangerous life. It's a bit like trying to be the most average person in the world, which, let's be honest, is actually quite hard to do consistently. Your social life becomes a tightrope walk. Friends want to know about your weekend. Your family asks about your plans. You have to invent believable stories for your absences, your late nights, your strange disappearances. Oh, I was just working late. Or, I had a sudden stomach bug. Or, I was visiting a distant relative. These excuses pile up, becoming increasingly elaborate and difficult to remember. You find yourself mentally rehearsing these lies, making sure they sound convincing even to yourself, and the guilt gnaws at you, especially when you have to lie to people you genuinely care about. It's a very lonely existence, filled with secrets that you can never share. A quirky, lesser-known tidbit from this period is how some agents maintained elaborate dummy routines to throw off potential surveillance. They might take the same bus route every day, but only get off at a different stop once a week to meet their handler. Or they'd go to the same coffee shop every morning, even if they didn't want coffee, just to establish a pattern of predictable behaviour. One agent was known to walk his dog at precisely the same time every day, rain or shine, making him seem utterly predictable, when in fact these walks were often used for dead drops or signal placements. You might find yourself doing something similar, creating a facade of absolute normalcy that feels utterly unnatural to you. It's like being an actor in your own life, but the play never ends, and the stakes are incredibly high. It's a point of contention among experts if the psychological toll of maintaining a false persona, day in and day out, ultimately made agents more prone to errors or emotional breakdowns. For you, the sheer exhaustion is overwhelming. Your brain is constantly working overtime, sorting through information, remembering lies, analysing risks. You feel like you're always performing, always on guard, even when you're alone in your own thoughts. You catch yourself almost blurting out a detail from your spy life to a friend, or forgetting a lie you told your family a week ago. The lines blur, and the constant stress makes you feel like you're teetering on the edge of a precipice. You start to develop a sense of hyper-awareness, noticing every detail around you. The person who always seems to be walking a few paces behind you, the car that's parked on your street for a bit too long, the phone ringing once and then stopping. Is it surveillance, or just your paranoia taking over? You don't know, and that uncertainty is perhaps the most draining part of all. Your normal life is no longer a refuge. It's just another part of the elaborate, dangerous act you're performing. You wish you could just be you for 5 minutes, without the fear, without the lies, without the constant pretense. But that person, the real you, feels like they're slowly disappearing, swallowed by the demands of your two very different, very dangerous lives. As you navigate the treacherous waters of your double life, an insidious poison begins to seep into your everyday existence, the heavy weight of lying. This isn't just about little white lies to avoid a boring social event. This is about deep, fundamental deception directed at the people closest to you, your family, your friends, anyone who trusts you implicitly. And it hurts. It hurts in a way you never anticipated. A persistent ache that settles deep in your chest and never truly goes away. You might find yourself at a family dinner, laughing and sharing stories, while secretly knowing you just completed a mission that could put all of them in danger. Or perhaps you're listening to a friend confide in you, seeking your advice, and all you can think about is the secret information you're holding, which you can never, ever share with them. Every genuine smile you offer, every seemingly honest conversation feels tainted by the enormous secret you carry. You become a master of omission, of half-truths, of changing the subject with practiced ease. But inside you feel like a fraud. The emotional toll of constantly deceiving those you love is immense. You start to feel isolated, even when surrounded by people. How can you truly connect with someone when you're hiding the most significant part of your life from them? How can you accept their trust when you know you are, in essence, betraying it every single day? The guilt can be overwhelming, a quiet but relentless voice in your head, reminding you of the web of lies you've spun. You might find yourself pulling away from people, creating emotional distance, because it's simply too painful to maintain the facade up close. It's a bit like having a constantly buzzing alarm bell going off in your head, telling you that you're doing something wrong, but you can't turn it off. One mainstream historical fact is that agents often cut ties with their families or minimized contact to protect them from the dangers of their secret life, or simply because the deception became too much to bear. This wasn't just about practical security, it was often a profound personal sacrifice. You might find yourself inventing reasons not to see your parents as often, or making excuses to miss important family events. Each missed birthday, each skipped holiday, adds another layer to the wall you're building around yourself. You tell yourself it's for their safety, but a part of you knows it is also because you can't bear to look them in the eye and know the truth you're hiding. The fear of discovery is ever present, and it's not just about the authorities finding out. It's about your loved ones finding out. Imagine the look on your parents' face, or your partner's, if they ever discovered the truth. The betrayal, the shock, the realization that the person they thought they knew was a complete stranger. This fear is a heavy, cold weight that never leaves you. It hangs over every conversation, every shared moment, like a dark cloud. A quirky, lesser-known tidbit is that some agents developed elaborate double-talk habits, speaking in generalities even in casual conversations, as if constantly practicing for an interrogation. They might answer a direct question about their day with something vague like, "Oh, just things," or "the usual business." This habit, while useful for security, often made them seem distant or odd to their friends and family, adding another layer to their isolation. You might find yourself doing this, trying to be vague, even with simple questions, just because the habit of secrecy has become so ingrained. It's a point of contention among experts if the ethical dilemmas faced by agents, particularly those forced to betray personal relationships, were more damaging to their psychological well-being than the direct threats of their work. For you, this constant ethical tightrope walk is incredibly difficult. You might try to rationalize your actions, telling yourself that what you're doing is for a greater good, or that you had no choice. But the nagging feeling of dishonesty, of living a lie, persists. You crave genuine connection, but you know you can never truly have it as long as you're wearing this mask. You watch your friends and family go about their normal lives seemingly unburdened by such immense secrets, and you feel a profound sense of envy. They can be honest, open, vulnerable. You cannot. The truth feels like a heavy chain around your neck, dragging you down. And the longer you carry it, the more permanent the weight feels. The smiles become a little harder to fake. The stories a little more difficult to invent. You begin to wonder if the person you were before this life of lies even exists anymore. The deception isn't just a strategy. It's slowly becoming who you are, eating away at your soul, one painful, dishonest interaction at a time. The constant juggling of two lives and the suffocating weight of endless lies eventually take their toll on something far more fundamental, your body and your mind. You start to feel unwell, not with a specific illness, but with a pervasive, bone-deep exhaustion that sleep can't quite fix. The constant pressure of being a double agent becomes a physical burden, weighing you down, stealing your energy, and chipping away at your peace of mind. Sleep becomes a luxury you rarely afford, and when you do, it's often fitful and restless. Your mind is always racing, replaying conversations, planning for the next task, worrying about what you might have forgotten or what mistake you might have made. You lie awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, analysing every creak of the house, every distant siren, every rustle outside your window. Is that a car stopping? Is someone watching your apartment? Your paranoia becomes a relentless companion, whispering doubts and fears into your ear, making true rest almost impossible. You might eventually drift off, only to be jolted awake by a nightmare about being exposed, or caught, or making a critical error. Waking up in a cold sweat becomes a regular occurrence. This lack of sleep, combined with constant stress, leads to a host of physical symptoms. You might develop a persistent tension headache that throbs behind your eyes. Your stomach might always feel a little knotted, a dull ache that never completely goes away. You might notice your hands trembling slightly, especially when you're under pressure. Your appetite might disappear, or you might find yourself eating too much, using food as a strange comfort against the anxiety. Your body is trying to tell you it's under immense strain, but you can't listen. The mission always comes first. You feel a constant buzzing beneath your skin, a nervous energy that makes it hard to sit still, hard to relax. One mainstream historical fact is the high incidence of stress-related illnesses, anxiety disorders, and even breakdowns among intelligence operatives, particularly those involved in long-term, high-stakes clandestine work. The human mind and body simply aren't built for that level of sustained pressure. You start to understand this reality on a very personal level. You find yourself short-tempered with loved ones, quick to snap, because your nerves are constantly frayed. You might forget simple things like where you put your keys, or a scheduled appointment, because your brain is overloaded with far more critical information. Your concentration wanes, making even routine tasks feel like monumental efforts. Your relationships suffer, not just from the lies, but from your deteriorating mental state. You become withdrawn, distracted, unable to fully engage. Friends might comment that you look tired or that you seem different. You brush them off, of course, with another vague excuse, but their concern only adds to your internal burden. You can't explain to them that you're operating on fumes, constantly battling invisible enemies, and that your own mind feels like it's turning against you. It's a lonely battle, fought mostly in the quiet hours of the night. A quirky, lesser-known tidbit is that some agents developed strange coping mechanisms or superstitions to deal with the overwhelming stress. Some would always carry a specific good luck charm. Others would meticulously follow a set of bizarre personal rituals before a mission, believing it would keep them safe. You might find yourself developing a similar habit, maybe always tapping a certain part of your body 3 times before leaving the house, or always taking the same route, even when it's out of the way, just for a tiny illusion of control. It's like a very personal, very quiet form of self-medication, trying to calm the storm brewing inside. It's a point of contention among experts if the long-term psychological impact of espionage can ever truly be overcome, even after an agent is no longer active. For you, the idea of normal seems to be slipping further and further away. You remember a time when you could truly relax, when your thoughts weren't a tangled mess of secrets and anxieties. That time feels like a distant dream. You might find yourself experiencing sudden bouts of intense paranoia, seeing threats where none exist, or interpreting innocent actions as sinister plots. Your sense of reality starts to warp under the relentless strain. The mirror reflects a version of you that looks haggard, with dark circles under your eyes and a permanent furrow in your brow. You catch yourself sighing deeply, unconsciously, a reflection of the heavy weight on your shoulders. You long for a moment of true peace, a space where you don't have to pretend, where you don't have to be afraid, where you can just be. But that peace feels impossible to find. The constant pressure has eroded your health, your peace, and even your sense of self, leaving you feeling like a worn-out machine, still running, but barely, always just on the edge of breaking down. And the game is far from over. So you're exhausted, paranoid, and weighed down by lies. And then, to add insult to injury, you have to work with some of the most bizarre and often clumsy gadgets imaginable. Forget the sleek, high-tech devices from spy movies that do everything with a flick of a wrist. During the Cold War, real spy tools were often clunky, temperamental, and occasionally utterly ridiculous. They might have been ingenious in concept, but in practice they were a source of endless frustration, and sometimes even greater danger. Imagine being handed a camera disguised as a pack of cigarettes. Seems clever, right? Except the lens is tiny, the film is fiddly, and you have to somehow hold it steady and aim it perfectly without looking, like you're trying to surreptitiously photograph the top-secret document on the desk in front of you. You find yourself trying to casually light a cigarette, even if you don't smoke, holding the pack just so, hoping the angle is right and the light isn't too dim, and then the film jams or the shutter doesn't click, leaving you in a cold sweat trying to fix a broken spy gadget in the middle of a highly sensitive operation. It's like trying to perform delicate surgery with a broken spork. Then there are the listening devices. Your handler might give you something that looks like an ordinary shoe, but inside it contains a crude transmitter. You're told to leave it in a specific office, perhaps by casually forgetting your shoe under a desk during a meeting. The problem? The battery life is terrible. The sound quality is often muffled and full of static, and the range is abysmal. You have to be perilously close to the target, often in another room, just to pick up anything intelligible. And if the shoe is discovered, well, you can explain that one to the authorities. It's enough to make you sigh, loudly, into the very air you're trying to keep secret. One mainstream historical fact is that much of the Cold War espionage involved low-tech, mechanical, and optical devices rather than advanced electronics, especially in the early decades. The focus was on ingenuity in concealment and manual operation. This meant that the burden of success often fell squarely on the agent's ability to use these tricky tools perfectly under pressure. You might find yourself with a tiny button camera that you have to somehow press precisely while pretending to adjust your jacket, praying the picture comes out. And what about communication? We talked about one-time pads, but sometimes things got even weirder. Imagine trying to send a message using invisible ink made from common household items, like lemon juice or urine, which only appear when heated. You write your message, let it dry, and then pass it along, hoping your contact remembers to heat it just right and doesn't accidentally spill coffee on it. The anxiety of whether your secret message will actually be readable on the other end is real. It's like sending a critical email, but then having to physically deliver the computer and hope the recipient knows how to turn it on and find the message. A quirky, lesser-known tidbit is the variety of bizarre hiding places and transportation methods for documents or small items. One infamous method was the dead rat drop, a hollowed-out fake rat that could be placed in a sewer or gutter, waiting for collection. Or the rectal concealment kit, which sounds exactly as uncomfortable as it was. Imagine being told to pick up a message from a tiny hollowed-out coin, or from inside a specific uncracked egg in a carton. It makes you wonder what kind of brainstorming sessions led to these ideas. Alright team, what's the most inconvenient place we can hide this microfilm? Excellent! Let's try the inside of a garden gnome next. It's a point of contention among experts if the over-reliance on overly complex or easily compromised covert methods sometimes hindered rather than helped intelligence gathering during the Cold War. For you, the sheer frustration of these clumsy tools is a constant drain on your already frayed nerves. You're trying to save the world, or at least survive it, and your main instrument is a camera that looks like a cheap lighter and only works half the time. You pray that your contact can actually decipher your scribbled invisible ink message, or that the dead drop doesn't get swept away by a sudden rainstorm. You often have to improvise, using everyday objects in clever ways. A hollowed-out book, a specific flower pot, a piece of clothing left on a park bench. These become your temporary secret tools. But the reliance on such methods only highlights the precariousness of your position. There's no help button, no tech support. It's just you, your shoddy gadgets, and the crushing weight of the mission. The romance of being a spy, if it ever existed, is completely evaporated by the reality of trying to operate a tiny, unreliable camera in a dark room, or praying your bug doesn't stop working just as the critical conversation begins. The life of a double agent is far more about clumsy tools and desperate improvisation than it is about sleek cinematic espionage. You're constantly stressed, perpetually tired, riddled with guilt, and fumbling with frustratingly clumsy gadgets. So you might ask, why bother? For many the answer was, at least in part, money. The promise of a better life, a comfortable cushion against financial worries, could be a powerful motivator. But here's the cold, hard truth. The pay often wasn't worth the worry. It rarely matched the immense risks you were taking, the constant fear, or the profound personal sacrifices. Imagine being offered a significant sum for your first piece of information. It feels huge, doesn't it? A game changer. You might finally be able to pay off debts, move to a nicer place, or simply eat without worrying about the cost. This initial payment is often enough to hook you, to make you believe that this dangerous path will truly lead to financial freedom. But quickly, you learn that the money isn't paid out in glamorous suitcases full of cash in a dimly lit alley. It's often delivered in small, irregular sums, sometimes tucked into dead drops, sometimes transferred to secret accounts that are difficult to access without raising suspicion. You might have to jump through hoops just to get your hands on what you're owed, and that initial large sum, it rarely keeps coming. Your handlers quickly realize they have you, and the payments might become less frequent or smaller. You're constantly reminded that your value depends on the quality and quantity of the intelligence you provide. If you don't deliver, the payments dry up. This creates a terrifying cycle of dependency. You've risked everything, burned your bridges, and now you need that money to justify the danger, to make sense of the life you've chosen. But the agencies on both sides were notoriously stingy, especially once an agent was deeply committed. They knew you had nowhere else to go. One mainstream historical fact is that while some high-value agents were indeed paid handsomely, the majority of informants and lower-level double agents received relatively modest sums, often just enough to cover expenses or provide a small bonus. Many agents risked their lives for what amounted to little more than a decent annual salary, far less than what they could have earned in a safe, legitimate career, especially when you factor in the sheer terror of being caught. You might find yourself calculating in your head the hourly rate for the sheer stress you're enduring, and it would be depressingly low. You could probably make more money doing something far less life-threatening, like competitive extreme knitting. The money also comes with its own set of problems. How do you explain a sudden influx of cash to your family or friends? You can't suddenly buy a new car or move into a mansion without raising eyebrows. You have to live a lie about your income just as you do about everything else. So, much of the money might sit untouched, in a foreign bank account you can't access, or buried somewhere, waiting for a hypothetical future that feels increasingly out of reach. It's ironic, isn't it? You get paid for risking your life, but you can't even fully enjoy the fruits of your dangerous labour without revealing your secret. A quirky, lesser-known tidbit about payments is that some agencies would pay agents in non-monetary ways, sometimes very strange ones. There are stories of agents being paid in rare stamps, or valuable art, or even things like specialised technical equipment they couldn't get otherwise. Imagine receiving a small, intricately carved wooden box as your payment, knowing it contains a priceless antique, but you can't sell it without raising questions. Or perhaps your bonus is a year's supply of exotic coffee beans. It's a bizarre form of compensation that often added to the agent's sense of confusion and isolation, making the paycheck more of a mystery than a relief. It's a point of contention among experts if the financial incentive was truly strong enough to outweigh the existential risks for most agents, or if it was more often a secondary factor after ideological conviction or coercion. For you, the money starts to feel less like a reward and more like a set of golden handcuffs. It's the reason you're trapped, the justification for every terrifying mission, every sleepless night. The initial allure of wealth fades, replaced by the grim reality that you're literally risking your life, your freedom, and your sanity for sums that probably won't even buy you true peace of mind. You look at the small stack of foreign currency you've managed to access, or the bank statement with its coded entries, and it feels hollow. It doesn't make the paranoia disappear. It doesn't ease the guilt of lying to your family. It doesn't make the clumsy gadgets work better, or the threat of capture any less real. The money is just another part of the elaborate, dangerous game you're playing, and it's certainly not worth the constant crushing weight of worry that accompanies every single penny earned in the shadows. You're beginning to understand that some prices are simply too high, no matter the currency. The monetary gains, however fleeting, quickly become secondary to a far more agonizing aspect of your double life. Making tough, uncomfortable decisions. These aren't just about choosing between right and wrong. They're about choosing between two wrongs, or between something terrible and something even worse. You find yourself in situations where the ethical lines blur completely, forcing you to compromise your own morals in ways you never thought possible. Imagine being tasked with providing information that could directly harm someone you know, perhaps a colleague or even an acquaintance. It might not be a close friend, but it's someone whose life could be ruined by the intelligence you provide. Your handler explains it clinically. this person is a threat, or collateral damage, or simply expendable. But to you they're a face, a name, a human being. The decision gnaws at you. Do you provide the information, risking their livelihood or freedom, to protect your own cover and fulfill your mission? Or do you refuse, risking exposure, capture, and everything you've already sacrificed? There's no easy answer, and either choice leaves a bitter taste in your mouth. You might be asked to plant false information, to discredit someone, or even to manipulate events in a way that causes chaos or division. These actions often go against every fibre of your being, every principle you once held dear. You argue with your handler, perhaps, trying to find another way, but their cold logic prevails. The mission, they remind you, is paramount. You find yourself doing things that feel fundamentally wrong, things that chip away at your soul, piece by agonizing piece. It's like being forced to dismantle your own conscience with a blunt tool. One mainstream historical fact is that agents were often forced to compromise their personal relationships, either by betraying friends or even in extreme cases, becoming complicit in actions that led to the imprisonment or death of innocent people, all in the name of the greater good or national security. You feel this reality pressing down on you. You might have to frame someone for a minor infraction, knowing it will lead to their dismissal, just to gain access to a sensitive area. Or you might have to plant a bug in the home of someone who has shown you kindness, knowing you are invading their privacy in the most profound way. The weight of these actions is immense, heavier than any physical burden. Sometimes the uncomfortable decisions are more subtle, but equally corrosive. You might have to lie to a dying relative about where you've been, or skip the funeral of a loved one because you have a mission that can't be delayed. These personal sacrifices, while not directly harming others, chip away at your sense of self, isolating you further from the world you're ostensibly trying to protect. You find yourself questioning who you really are anymore, or what you truly believe in, when your actions are so far removed from your original intentions. A quirky, lesser-known tidbit is that some agents, grappling with their conscience, developed incredibly elaborate internal justifications for their actions, sometimes even creating a separate personality for their spy work to distance themselves from the moral compromises. One agent reportedly imagined he was a character in a grim novel, allowing him to perform heinous acts while telling himself it wasn't really me. Another would perform a small, seemingly meaningless act of kindness to a stranger after every morally compromising mission, as if to balance the scales. You might find yourself doing something similar, a little mental trick to try and cope with the things you're being forced to do. It's a point of contention among experts if the long-term psychological damage from these moral compromises can ever truly heal, even after an agent leaves the service or the Cold War ends. For you, the scars are already forming. Each difficult decision, each act that goes against your conscience, leaves a mark. You start to feel hollowed out, like a shell of your former self. The world becomes a shades of grey place, where pure good and pure evil rarely exist, and you are trapped somewhere in the murky middle. You might try to suppress the guilt, to push it down deep, but it always resurfaces, often in moments of quiet reflection or in the middle of a sleepless night. The faces of those you've indirectly harmed, or the principles you've compromised, haunt your thoughts. You've crossed lines you never thought you would, all in the name of survival or duty or perhaps a misguided sense of purpose. And with each line crossed, it becomes easier to cross the next one. The moral decay is slow, insidious, and deeply painful. You are transforming, not into a hero, but into something much more complex and much less comfortable. You've made agonizing choices, sacrificed your peace of mind, and alienated yourself from those you love. And yet, despite all you've done, there's one chilling reality that constantly gnaws at you. You're never fully trusted by anyone, not by the side you're secretly serving, and certainly not by the side you're pretending to serve. You exist in a permanent state of suspicion, a lone wolf caught between two powerful, distrusting packs. The side you're spying for, your real masters, view you with a cautious eye. After all, you've proven you can betray your own country. What's to stop you from betraying them? They will constantly test you, subtle at first, then more overt. They might ask for information that seems random, just to see if you can get it. They might give you conflicting instructions, just to see if you show hesitation or confusion. They might even plant false information with you, just to see if you try to pass it to the other side. This constant scrutiny from the people you're risking everything for is utterly draining. You can never relax, never truly feel accepted or valued, not in the way a loyal agent might. You're always an asset, a tool, and a potential liability. And the side you're ostensibly serving, your cover country, also harbours a deep-seated distrust. Even if they don't suspect you're a double agent, your unusual habits, your unexplained absences, your guarded demeanour, all of these things might slowly raise red flags. You might find yourself under internal investigation, subtle at first, just routine checks, but growing more intense if anything seems amiss. They'll scrutinise your background, your finances, your relationships. Every time you fill out a form or answer a casual question from a colleague, you're aware that every detail is being silently weighed and judged. One mainstream historical fact is that many double agents, particularly those who were turned, meaning they initially worked for one side and then switched allegiance, often under duress, were never truly given high-level sensitive information by their new handlers. They were often used as conduits for misinformation, or as a way to gather intelligence on the other side's intelligence operations, rather than as sources of critical state secrets. You might find yourself frustrated, constantly asking for more important tasks, only to be met with vague assurances, because your handlers don't trust you enough to give you truly vital information. It's a bitter pill to swallow, realizing you're deemed too risky for the real action, even after all your sacrifices. The paradox of your existence is that your greatest strength, your ability to operate in two worlds, is also your greatest weakness. Both sides know you are a master of deception, and therefore both sides assume you are deceiving them. You are perpetually walking on thin ice with cracks forming beneath your feet from every direction. The feeling of not belonging anywhere, of being an outsider in both of your adopted worlds, contributes heavily to your profound sense of loneliness. You have no true allies, no one with whom you can drop your guard even for a moment. A quirky, lesser-known tidbit is that some intelligence agencies would conduct bizarre loyalty tests on their double agents. One famous example involved an agent being given seemingly impossible tasks, or being left waiting for hours at a dead drop that would never appear, just to see if they'd break cover or express frustration. Another involved planting a small, seemingly insignificant mistake in a piece of intelligence the agent was supposed to handle, just to see if the agent noticed it and reported it, or if they simply passed it along without scrutiny. It's like being constantly watched during a pop quiz you didn't study for, and the questions are designed to trick you. It's a point of contention among experts if the inherent distrust of double agents led to agencies underutilizing them, or if it was a necessary precaution given the extreme risks. For you, This lack of trust is a constant source of anxiety. You strive to be impeccable, to follow every order, to provide perfect intelligence, hoping that one day you might earn a sliver of genuine confidence from your handlers. But that day never seems to come. Every successful mission is met not with praise, but with more scrutiny, more tests. You might dream of a day when the Cold War ends, or when you can somehow escape this life and finally be free of the constant suspicion. But even then, you know the distrust will linger. The label of double agent is not just a job title, it's a mark, a brand that sticks to your soul. You're a person who betrayed, who deceived, and that truth will follow you, whether in the quiet suspicions of former colleagues or the permanent watchful eyes of your handlers. You are forever caught in the crosshairs of doubt, never truly safe, never truly free. Despite all the caution, the training, the endless vigilance, the life of a double agent is filled with close calls and heart-stopping panic moments. These are the instances when the thin veil of your cover feels like it's about to rip apart, when the chill of discovery washes over you and your blood runs cold. These moments are brief, perhaps just a few seconds, but they are seared into your memory, leaving an indelible mark of terror. Imagine you're making a dead drop in a quiet park, trying to look like you're simply enjoying a sunny afternoon. You've carefully placed the package, a rolled-up newspaper with microfilm tucked inside, under a specific bench. As you casually walk away, you hear a sudden voice behind you. "Excuse me, did you drop this?" Your heart leaps into your throat. You freeze, every muscle tensing. You slowly turn, preparing for the worst, only to see an elderly woman holding up a loose glove. The relief is so profound it almost makes you weak in the knees. You stammer out a polite, "No, I don't think so," and quickly walk away, your legs feeling like jelly. The near miss leaves you shaking for hours, unable to focus, constantly replaying the terrifying moment in your mind. Or perhaps you're trying to cross a border, armed with a perfectly forged passport and a meticulously rehearsed cover story. You've practiced your new identity so thoroughly you almost believe it yourself. You approach the border guard, trying to project an air of calm boredom. They look at your passport, then at you, their eyes lingering a moment too long. "Purpose of your visit?" they ask, their voice flat. You give your rehearsed answer, but your mind is racing, scanning their face for any sign of suspicion. They ask a follow-up question, something unexpected, designed to trip you up. "And where exactly did you get those shoes?" You mentally scramble, inventing a plausible answer on the spot, your palms sweating. The seconds stretch into an eternity. Finally, with a curt nod, they stamp your passport. You walk away, trying not to run, the sound of your own rapid breathing deafening in your ears. One mainstream historical fact is that border crossings and routine security checks were incredibly high-stress points for agents, often leading to arrests if even minor inconsistencies were found in their cover stories or documents. You learn to live with this constant fear, the understanding that at any moment a random question, a sharp-eyed official, or a simple mistake could end your fragile existence as a free person. It's like being perpetually on a tightrope, with no safety net below. Then there are the moments when you think you've been spotted by counterintelligence. You're on a surveillance detection route, trying to see if anyone is following you. You duck into a shop, come out another exit, change your pace. You feel confident. Then you see that car, the same one you saw parked near your apartment this morning, now a few blocks away. Your stomach drops. Your mind screams, "They're onto me!" You immediately change your plan, perhaps heading for a crowded public place, trying to disappear into the throng. You spend the rest of the day looking over your shoulder, your heart pounding with a silent alarm. The fear is so intense it's almost physical, a cold hand squeezing your chest. A quirky, lesser-known tidbit is that some agents had incredibly bizarre close calls related to animals. One agent reportedly dropped a vital piece of microfilm down a sewer grate, only for a stray cat to bat it out moments before he could give up hope. Another agent, trying to make a dead drop in a hollow tree, was startled by a family of owls living inside, almost blowing his cover with a yelp of surprise. Imagine trying to explain to your handler that your top secret documents were nearly eaten by a squirrel, or that your mission was almost compromised by a particularly curious pigeon. It adds darkly comical layer to the terrifying reality. It's a point of contention among experts if surviving these close calls was more a matter of sheer luck, an agent's innate quick thinking, or the incompetence of the opposing intelligence agency. For you, it feels like a roll of the dice every time. You replay these moments in your head, analysing every detail, every twitch of your own face, every glance from another person. Did you do something wrong? Could you have been more careful? The self-doubt is relentless. Each close call reinforces the fragility of your double life, reminding you that at any moment the house of cards you've built could come crashing down, and you'd be exposed, alone, and facing a very grim future. These moments of intense panic are constant, silent reminders that your life hangs by the thinnest of threads. You've lived through the paranoia, the lies, the physical toll, the moral compromises, and the terrifying close calls. But what happens when the game ends? What becomes of a double agent when the Cold War, the very conflict that gave your dangerous life purpose, begins to fade, or when you're no longer useful? The truth is, the uncertain, shadowy future of a double agent is often just as bleak, if not more so, than their active service. There's rarely a grand farewell, a hero's welcome, or a peaceful retirement. As the Cold War slowly wound down, particularly in the late 1980s and early 1990s, many agents found themselves in an impossible position. The agencies they worked for began to shrink, their priorities shifted, and the enemy became less clear. You might receive a final terse message from your handler, telling you to go dark, to disappear, to simply stop all activities. No thank you, no severance package, no help to restart a normal life. You are simply cut loose, a disposable asset whose utility has expired. It's like being a loyal soldier in a war that suddenly ends, but you're left standing on the battlefield alone, with no one to claim you. The challenges of re-entry into a normal life are immense. You've been living a fabricated existence for years, perhaps decades. Your real identity might feel foreign to you. Your skills, deception, observation, secrecy, are utterly useless, even dangerous in a civilian world. How do you explain your years of unexplained absences, your lack of a stable career, or your guarded demeanour to potential employers or new friends? The lies you concocted to protect your cover now become barriers to any kind of honest connection. You're left with a lifetime of secrets you can never share and experiences that no one could possibly understand. One mainstream historical fact is that many Cold War agents, particularly from the collapsing Soviet bloc, faced severe difficulties after the fall of the Berlin Wall and the dissolution of the USSR. Some were imprisoned by their own former governments, some became destitute, and others simply vanished, unable to adapt. You might find yourself drifting from job to job, always looking over your shoulder, unable to shake the habits of paranoia that have become so ingrained. The peace you longed for feels strangely hollow, filled with the echoes of your past. And what about the other side? The country you were originally spying against. They haven't forgotten you. Even if you're no longer active, the intelligence agencies on both sides kept meticulous files. You might live with the constant low-level fear that one day a knock will come at your door and you'll have to answer for your past actions. Amnesties were rare, and even if granted, the psychological scars remained. You're forever marked by your choices, a ghost haunting your own present. A quirky, lesser-known tidbit is that some former agents, desperate for purpose or money, tried to find new work in the private sector, sometimes becoming corporate spies or private investigators, using their specialized skills in new, less ideological ways. Others, unable to cope with the transition, reportedly became eccentrics, living solitary lives filled with strange routines, constantly scanning their surroundings for threats that no longer existed. Imagine spending your retirement setting up elaborate dead drops in your garden, or meticulously encrypting your grocery lists, just because the habit is so deeply ingrained. It's a sad, quiet comedy of errors, born from a life of extreme stress. It's a point of contention among experts if intelligence agencies have a moral or ethical responsibility to provide long-term support or protection for their former agents, given the profound personal sacrifices demanded of them. For you, the idea of a happy ending feels like a cruel joke. There's no triumphant return, no quiet cabin in the woods where you can finally relax. Your future is as uncertain and shadowy as your past. You are a loose end, a discarded tool, and the world has moved on, leaving you with nothing but your memories and the ghosts of the lives you once lived. The double agent's journey rarely ends with a sunset, but often with a slow fade into anonymity, or worse, obscurity, with the constant echo of the secrets you can never reveal. The silence that now envelops you is different, isn't it? It's not the silence of waiting for a signal, or the quiet hum of a hidden bug. It's a deeper, more peaceful hush, the kind that settles in when the stories are told and the shadows begin to soften. The Cold War, with its hidden battles and whispered betrayals, has receded, like a distant storm fading over the horizon. You can almost feel the tension in your shoulders begin to ease, the frantic pace of your thoughts gently slowing down. Imagine the world outside your window growing quieter, the streetlights casting long, gentle glows, and the air growing still. The fears and anxieties of that hidden life are now just echoes, faint whispers in the past. Your own breath becomes slow and even, a comforting rhythm. The long journey through the secret world is done, and it's time to let all those complex thoughts and feelings drift away, like tiny clouds on a calm night sky. Allow yourself to sink deeper into your bed, feeling the warmth and comfort around you. Every muscle relaxes, every worry loosens its grip. There's nothing more to do, nothing more to think about. Just rest. Let the quiet settle in and the peace wash over you.